Howdy guys, Jimmy Song here. In this video, I'm going to talk about Neutrino, SPV, and full nodes. Now, if you don't know what Neutrino is, it is an alternate way of getting blockchain data from a full node that's not like SPV. SPV was talked about in the Bitcoin white paper by Satoshi. And the general idea is that you can prove that a particular transaction was in a block. Now, the problem with SPV, or at least the BIP37 version, is that you can't really tell. You're giving up some privacy by doing it. Even if you use a Bloom filter and everything else, it's relatively easy for the full node that you're connected to figure out what transactions are interesting to you, and therefore figure out how much Bitcoin you might have, and so on. Now, Neutrino is nice because it's doing a lot more client-side filtering. So the difference between BIP37 and Neutrino is that BIP37, you tell the server, hey, I'm interested in this type of transaction. The server has to filter itself, and then it gives you the transactions that you're interested in. But with Neutrino, it's the other way around. It does you do client-side filtering. So you for any particular block, you can download sort of like a fingerprint of all the transactions, and from there figure out, hey, okay, that block looks interesting, and then you download the whole block. And at that point, you can look through the entire block and look for things of interest to you. And if there is something that is of interest to you, then you can update the state of the wallet and so on. It's very useful for a lot of things, and it's a much better design than BIP37. Now, the controversy that's been happening lately is that there's a conversation about whether we should have any sort of light client support at all, because you do have full nodes, which are a lot more secure because you do have the entire blockchain. Is Neutrino sufficiently I guess private enough? Is it discouraging full nodes and so on? And that was what Nicolas Dorier's complaint was about. It's I think he said something like a year and a half ago, we had businesses that did SegWit 2x, and they were happy with everybody being an SPV now. Now, here's sort of the reality here. Most light wallets do not implement BIP37. Most light wallets do not implement Neutrino. In fact, only BTCD, to my knowledge, supports Neutrino at this point. So it's very, very difficult to get that working anyway. So really, we haven't used SPV very much. Now, that said, there are benefits to a full node because you don't have to trust anybody. With something like Neutrino, with SPV, or with BIP37, you do get proofs from the server, but you have to trust them with some of your info, and they can figure out how much money you have and so on. So that can be bad. With Neutrino, you're trusting them a lot less. And in fact, if Neutrino did have some sort of Coinbase commitment, which is something that they've been talking about for a while, then it would be a soft fork, and then it would be verifiable fairly easily. You can look at the fingerprints of all of the transactions, and you can know right away whether or not that's true or false. And that's a really good thing. That gives you a lot of the information that you would get as a full node. Now, the argument is, well, should you run a full node or not when you're doing any sort of a Bitcoin wallet? Well, there are arguments on both sides. A lot of people think that full node is better because you have self-sovereignty. A lot of people like Neutrino because then you can have wallets on a phone and limited devices and so on. You don't need 200 gigabytes or maybe even 9 gigabytes that you might need in prudent mode and so on. So in many ways, it is an interesting argument. Nicola, I think Luke Dash and some others are on one side. There's a lot, Lalu and others are on the Neutrino side, saying that that's safe. What I would like to see are more wallets that try it, and then sort of look at how it gets used. Because there's a presumption on both sides a little bit. Like the people that are opposed to Neutrino and light wallets in general are presuming that they will be used in lieu of like full nodes. But generally, like my personal take is, if you are using Neutrino for a light wallet or for a Lightning or something like that, you're typically not going to be transacting with very much money, and that's part of the design. You're not supposed to open Lightning channels that are that big. And the idea is that the security properties are different. We don't really know where the vulnerabilities are, because it hasn't lasted that long. It's maybe like a year and a half old. As it ages, we'll there's more confidence in it, and eventually maybe it can get that way. But for larger amounts, you're more or less going to use a full node. So I think that's the more likely scenario, but who knows? Like, it's possible that people will keep all their wealth in like a Lightning channel eventually. But, that's far down the road. And in the meantime, giving people choices, I don't think is a bad thing. And, given the opportunity, I think most people use multiple types of wallets and not a single one. But who knows? As it is, a lot of people have cold storage and and on less secure storage that's maybe online and things like that, and that may be appropriate, because you may want to pay your friend for dinner or something like that. I certainly have multiple wallets. If I'm like out with somebody and I don't have cash on me and they want to pay with their credit card, like that might be a useful scenario for using something like Lightning. But I may not want to keep all of my Bitcoin in a Lightning channel. In fact, I would strongly caution against doing something like that, at least right now, until the security properties have been more proven, and there's enough channel capacity to even make that spendable and things like that. So in many ways, all of this debate, I think, is somewhat premature, because we don't know where the market's going to go, and ultimately, it's not the opinions of a few developers that matter. It's really you guys, right? The users. You guys are the ones in control. And if one guy may denigrate Neutrino, and you might get convinced and not use it. But another guy might convince you, hey, this is good. Or, it might have lasted like a few years, and you might be at that point comfortable enough using it. So, this is one of those things where, like, it doesn't really matter who's right, because we'll find out eventually. And until then, just be kind of cautious with your Bitcoin. Hope that helps you, and hope that sheds a little bit of light on what they were talking about on Twitter. This song is that.